Scientists have discovered another alarming thing about the climate change. Climate change is going to make us sicker. What's happening here? Scientists looking at 70,000 existing research papers have found direct links. We have the lead author of the research published last week in Nature Climate Change, Dr. Erik Franklin. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Franklin is Associate Professor at the University of Hawaii. So what are the salient findings of this extraordinary research which you have just published?
Yeah, for myself and the team, we were quite shocked. We felt like these were unexpected and sobering results. We had known from prior work that climate hazards, climate change had some effect on human pathogenic diseases or human infectious diseases, but we didn't anticipate that there would be so many connections. So we found that over 200 individual diseases would be negatively affected by climate change impacts.
Negatively meaning they will increase the likelihood of people getting them.
Correct. Yeah. So we found four kind of different types of effects that would happen. One is that climate hazards or climate change would bring these diseases closer to people. So say the vectors that carried them, and a vector could be a mosquito or it could be an animal, would be closer to people and increase their chance of getting infected. And also because of other climate hazards, say droughts or wildfires, we found that people would then move and get closer to where areas where these diseases occurred. We also found that climate change would make some of the diseases stronger, and that it would also make humans weaker and more susceptible to some of these diseases.
So not only the pathogens are going to be available in different areas, but human beings are going to be weaker to deal with it. How does that work?
Yeah, you can imagine when you've got, say, a bad flood, you've had storms, you've had rainfall, you've had flooding. Often you're in a situation where you're just immune compromised, you're not feeling good, maybe you're getting sick from the conditions, you're in unsanitary or unhealthy conditions. And those often, for instance, could have bacterial pathogens that are waterborne and making you more susceptible to catching those.
So do you think there are areas on Earth where there are more water, more flood, more humid and hotter environments? Do you think there is a need for research how people over there deal with these type of challenges, so people who do not have these things can learn from it?
Yeah, the intent of this paper was to provide as comprehensive as possible, just a body of evidence for what we already know about the links between these climate hazards and human pathogenic diseases. And we've also created an online tool that would allow someone who's a health practitioner or doctor who's trying to prepare for or treat people with these diseases to allow them to see what the case studies were, maybe learn more about what's going to affect their areas as a way to prepare and hopefully try and adapt to some of these coming changes.
Climate change looks such a remote thing, which Al Gore in the universe somewhere he is talking about and all that. But coming to human being, they will be sicker. Don't you think this will provide another angle for people to take the message of climate change is alarming to more of the human level and more in the neighborhoods?
Absolutely. One of the intents of this paper getting out, and we've been getting quite a bit of press about it, is to convey the message that climate change is a human issue. It's not just an environmental issue, and human health will be negatively affected. We're going to have an increasing chance of these human pathogenic diseases becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And for our paper, realize that we only captured, what has already been published, what's been known. We didn't really predict about unknown diseases or things that could emerge, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. So in some ways, what we're presenting is more conservative than what may actually occur.
Wow. So you're saying the study of 70,000 papers have led you to conclusions which may not be, which are conservative, and it could be worse. What are the possibility of worse situation?
Yeah, it's just that we can't predict what new viruses, for instance, may emerge. We've identified over 1,000 pathways where we've connected a climate hazard with what's called the transmission pathway. So it could be a vector. Remember earlier I mentioned a vector could be, say, a mosquito or an animal that carries that disease. It could be waterborne or foodborne, and then leading to that disease. And it could be a viral disease or a bacterial disease or something else. We found 1,000 separate individual pathways from our study. And so that's what we know, but we could actually add to those, over 1,000 pathways with new things emerging.
Wow, 1,000 pathways. So people, are there institutions, do we have research institutions capacity to focus on those 1,000 pathways to ensure that human beings are ahead of the curve?
Yeah, around the world, I mean, there are many research institutes and global health agencies, organizations working on these issues. But the message that we wanted to put out too is that the scope and scale of this is pretty overwhelming. And even now, there are challenges that exist to try and cope with these diseases. And if they are to increase, just that magnitude, it led us to the conclusion that we really need to do something to immediately try to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, which are the driver that's leading to this increased threat to human health.
Professor Franklin, what have you recommended to nations? I mean, nations and countries and the government, they sit on a lot of resources and move pretty slowly. So what are your recommendations?
Yeah, the recommendations for these next steps are, to utilize a tool like this as evidence that these connections exist, to be able to identify for what your particular region is, what the major climate hazards are going to be and the associated increases in the human pathogenic diseases, and try and plan for these occurrences in whatever capacity you have for your health system networks. But we also think, again, that's preparing and being proactive. Another proactive step is trying to decrease the greenhouse gas emissions and finding pathways to do that.
Sitting in my home, I won't be able to control the greenhouses. I'm all busy in doing recycling and things which I could do individually. But and a whole lot of world is engaged in that. I mean, children who are raised on thoughtful living, they're doing their part of it. But what are the things which individuals can do, not the government, but individuals can do and to ensure they are adapting to what seems like coming our way?
Yeah, I think what you're bringing up are good first steps. There are many organizations that provide a list of things that you can do at an individual level to try and both decrease your carbon footprint, and then even broader things like, use your vote. Make sure your vote matters in terms of, climate action. Get involved, either politically or in grassroots organizations to make sure that your leaders represent the way you feel about these changes coming.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Erik Franklin. Professor Franklin is professor at the University of Hawaii and the lead author of the research, which is connecting climate change is going to make things worse when it comes to human health. Are you concerned about your health? This is the time to look up. What is the website where you're saying people can go and look up things?
Yeah, I suggest that you go to Nature Climate Change, where our paper was published, and hopefully you can list the title of that for interested viewers, and then there'll be a link there to the website, the online tool.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Franklin, for your time. Truly appreciate that.
I appreciate you letting me share these findings. Thank you very much.